So we did actually put out a question on our social media just to ask people, did they have any questions for you? So we might just go to those, if that's okay, just to kind of
Sure, yeah.
work through those and see what people had to say. So I might start with, so there was 2 questions on calculating payback and working out the payback time. So one question here is, we'd like to spend money on upgrading our heating. So looking at heat pump and looking at insulation and air tightness. But I'd like to know if I can / how to calculate the payback before investing. So if you could kind of share your insights on that.
Sure. So in terms of payback period, essentially your payback period is going to be the cost of the upgrade, divided out by your annual savings. Or if you want to do it, obviously annually is generally the way you would take a look at it. So there's lots of factors to consider there. I suppose the cost of the system is primarily it. So again, it's important that you know the cost, or what it's going to cost you to install that system primarily. So again, back to kind of advice kind of earlier on, in terms of, make sure that you get a couple of prices like for like. Make sure you're happy with what you're getting. You know what you're getting. You know the price of it. And then I suppose you need to look at the cost of the energy, the cost of the alternative. Would say, solar thermal, for instance, would be a good example, where you're using a boiler to heat your hot water before. So again, you're looking at how much it actually cost you before to heat the hot water. And for that, you need to know the cost of the fuel, the efficiency of the appliance that was used to uh, heat the water. And then obviously your per unit rates kind of, and again, a good resource for that, actually, SCI, we have like fuel cost comparison kind of spreadsheets. They'd be generally used by people kind of maybe BR assessors, or people who are looking at kind of this sort of stuff in a little bit more detail. But they are all there and published and updated regularly. So that's where you actually can calculate your annual saving. So you would, let's say you're using a kilowatt of oil, will cost X amount. Then you will look at the efficiency of your boiler. It's 80% efficiency. So for every 1 kilowatt of oil that goes through your boiler, you actually only get 0.8 of a kilowatt coming out. And then you'll calculate the cost of that and into your sort of energy savings. And then that gets aggregate. So that's your annual energy saving. And then you divide it into the cost of your system that you're installing, and that'll give you your payback period in years. Generally is what we kind of look at. And obviously you'll be looking for something that kind of paybacks that pays back quicker. So in terms of upgrades, it is kind of always good to kind of contextualize it in that way. And then that might actually help kind of prioritize which upgrades you'll go for over the other. And that's generally kind of, again, the stuff that we looked at earlier, the likes of by prioritizing attic insulation over something else. You're talking something that's going to cost maybe 1,200 quid. We're saying that if you've absolutely no insulation, kind of, you could be losing up to 30% of your heat through there. That's going to pay back quite quickly. So that's why we sort of prioritize that type of measure over something like a heat pump that could be anything from maybe 8 to 15, 17,000 euros, which is going to take quite a lot of time to pay back that amount. Obviously, the initial sort of capital cost of what it costs to install it, or even to get the house heat pump ready, install a heat pump, they save you quite a lot of money. But again, because the capital cost is higher, the payback period is going to be a little bit longer. But that's generally how it's done.
Yeah, like with heat pumps, you're kind of hoping that, within the payback, you're also just getting a payback of just feeling great that you're using a heat pump.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So then just looking at this next question. So somebody's saying, if someone is looking to do a deep retrofit as part of a whole house renovation that may include other work such as an extension or layout reconfigure, what is the best starting point? So do you engage an architect for overall design and specification, or where does the energy advisor sit in this type of scenario?
Yeah, I suppose coming from my own background, I probably have a slight bias kind of here, but I do, I have seen lots of scenarios kind of over the years where energy advisors or even just the contractor that's carried out the energy upgrade isn't engaged at an early stage. And the design team may have made decisions that conflict with what actually needs to be done as part of the upgrade. Ventilation is a big one, particularly kind of wall ventilation and stuff like that, where vents need to be installed on the wall, but it mightn't actually be specced out or in the pricing document for the contractor to price. But however, in order to, the homeowner has said, I want this upgrade, I want to claim the grant, but you know, the design team have actually made the specification. QS might have actually sent out a pricing document to a contractor with these items excluded. Then they come back and the contractor has done what been asked to do, and then it may actually conflict with the specification required to claim a grant, for instance. So I think engage. Ideally, everybody engages kind of at an early stage. You're going to be going to your builder or your architect or your whoever is managing the build for you um, first. That's always going to happen. But encourage them to get in touch with a technical advisor, a BR assessor, or whoever is going to be specing your upgrades for you. And if that's not in the sort of mix at that stage, at least if the measures are going to get carried out, um, start kind of looking for your contractors kind of early on, and ask them, what will I need to do. If you want to go down a grant route, which definitely I don't see why anyone wouldn't want to go down that route, and ask them, is there anything that we might be overlooking here, or is there anything that we need to kind of budget for, kind of, that we haven't already. They're the guys that are doing it day in, day out. And whether it's an energy advisor or a contractor that's going to be carrying out the works, I think it's really important for deep retrofits. They're, they can be quite complex projects, and there's a lot of things to consider. So I think getting everybody around the table kind of earlier on is always like the best approach, kind of there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
brilliant. Yeah, no, that's great. And then somebody has a question on windows. So we've got, so when looking at replacing windows and assuming no planning issues, does triple glazing make sense? Or are there double glazed technologies that will achieve the same or similar U value, which now I understand what that means. So which is more efficient and cost effective?
I think it'd be difficult to say that double glazing would be more efficient than triple glazing. What I would say is, generally, from an energy point of view, you look at the window or the door as a unit, and you're looking at the U value of the unit. So it may be double glazed, it may be triple glazed. There's lots of different things going on with windows, with different gases that are installed in the cavities, or kind of in the cavities, films, maybe on the glass as well. So what you're looking at is the U value of the unit itself. So how much heat will go from the inside to the outside, and like that's generally the way I would always kind of look at kind of windows. There's other stuff in windows in terms of like noise and sound, which probably I don't get too bogged down in, because it's not something that from an energy point of view that's particularly sort of important for energy. If you're near a busy road, again, maybe that's something to consider. But generally, triple glazing will be more expensive because there's more material in the window. Um, is it better or worse? I think as a generalization, triple glazing will perform better than double glazing. and as a generalization, it will be more expensive than double glazing. Um, with that though, again, like I said, focus on the U values. There is kind of other options as well. You may be actually going to the same supplier on certain elevations. You may not, I've seen kind of stuff on, south facing elevations, double glazing might be fine there. Whereas, if you have a north facing elevation, it might make more sense to go for a triple glazed option kind of there. So again, it's very much kind of site specific and dwelling or home specific kind of there. Particularly if the budget is kind of stretched and you just want to do the right thing or the best, you want to get the best out of it. It mightn't actually necessarily be that I have triple glazing everywhere. It might be that on some elevations I have double glazing, on some elevations I have triple glazing, or I go with But again, I say focus in on the U values kind of. And that would be what would guide me in terms of selecting the window.
Okay, perfect. No, that's great. And then the last question we have here kind of circles back to just our conversation on kind of green loans and low cost, low interest green loans. But this person has asked, I'd like to know if there could be a scheme that would give access to long-term, ultra low cost green loans to those on low and middle incomes, just to give them the opportunity to improve their home energy efficiency and environmental impact. So I suppose just to kind of get your thoughts on that and where you see it should be taken for people who are looking, to get loans out like that.
Yeah. Currently, I'm not aware of any product like that, but there is a lot of work going on in that space. I suppose it's a really it's a hard one. I suppose what people kind of what most people will need in order to get ourselves the deep retrofit, to get ourselves the heat pump, is exactly what's being sort of being asked for here. So it's ultra low kind of interest, long term, and like I said, currently at the minute, we mentioned the Impulse product kind of earlier on, which is like 4.8% over 10 years. That's a fantastic rate when you look at the market now. The period is kind of medium term, but when we're talking long term, we're probably talking 15, 20, 25, 30 years. And I think when you're talking ultra low interest rates, we're probably looking at something similar to like mortgage interest rates or something like that. So you're talking, less than what's currently available there. It's not, it's probably not not my area in terms of like, I'm not a banker or a financier. So
That's fair. That's fair.
I just know that it is definitely something that's being looked at, kind of particularly at a European level, how this sort of product can be made available mainstream.
Yeah.
And like I said, there is kind of stuff coming on stream. Like I said, the Unpus scheme. There's even like, I think if you can, even with some of the banks there at the minute, if you can prove that your house is brought up to a certain energy rating, they'll give you a preferential rate for 5 years. Doesn't make a massive difference, but again, it is at least acknowledging the fact that you have an energy efficient home and they're willing to give you, a better rate for a period of time because of that. So
Yeah.
definitely a move in the right direction. But I think, watch this space is probably the real message here. Like something like that, is needed, and there is a lot of work being done in that space kind of at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think ultimately we want more and more people feeling that they can partake in that kind of energy transition. So it needs to be accessible. So as you said, watch this space. So fingers crossed we can see things coming on stream soon.
Absolutely. And in terms of grants, like I said, the grants are going to bring you like 30% of the way, or kind of in the region of that space. It's to bridge the gap between, of the other 70. And if it's going to cost 50,000 to retrofit a house, that's something that needs to be accessible to the masses as such, for everyone to adopt it and everyone to get their heat pump in and get their house heat pump ready, and to get the heat pump in. It is something that kind of needs to be stretched out probably more than the 10 years, which seems to be the best that's on the market at the minute.